Welcome to our new edition of Advanced Tech Talk. Today I'm excited to have you all join us and discuss framework logistics. And I'm delighted to introduce you to our guest, Cathy Morrow, who is renowned logistics expert and the founder of Logistics TI, a leading consulting firm specializing in supply chain optimization. Cathy brings a wealth of knowledge and experience, continuing to empower businesses in navigating complex supply chain challenges and driving sustainable growth. Um, could you please introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background in the logistics industry, Cathy?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm really flattered to be asked to join you. Again, my name is Cathy Morrow Roberson, and I've been in the supply chain space for like well over 20 years. I run a small market research firm focused on supply chains called Logistics Trends and Insights. And like I said, I've been involved for well over 20 years, doing all kind of research, whether it's due diligence, competitive analysis, technology comparison, or evaluation, content writing, you name it. So it's a fun space to be in. And, it's funny because I kind of fell into it like a lot of people did. I mean, my goal in life was not to be involved in supply chain. I'd never even heard of the word supply chain until I was offered a position at UPS. Prior to that, I was a librarian. But at least I was able to utilize that research skill that I'd picked up over the years and use that for UPS. And for about 11 years before I started going into consulting and such.
Wow. What do you think that inspired you to specialize and stay in logistics and supply chain?
Well,
What caught you?
what caught me? So, well, first of all, when I was offered a position at UPS, it was an interesting position. A friend of mine was already working there, and she was part of a new group. It was a new product development team that wasn't focused on small packages. And she said, we're looking to expand into freight, cargo, supply chain, end-to-end supply chain. So that caught my attention. I was like, okay, fine. I like a good
Challenge.
Yeah. So I joined, and the research, it was pretty crazy stuff. Looking up RFID tagging of cattle. I think that was one of the most bizarre requests I got. But it wasn't until I walked into a warehouse because they were like, well, maybe you should tour some of the warehouses to see how they operate. And I was like, okay, fine. So I walked in and I noticed everything had a specific place on the shelves. And that fascinated me because it reminded me of a library, from where I came from. And then when the head of that particular warehouse was walking me through the warehouse management system, it suddenly clicked. It's like, well, here's the card catalog. Through this, I learned that's where they go to see where an item is, how much of an item, where it's going, who has it checked out, quote unquote, meaning, where did it go and checked in. So from there, it just clicked with me and I was hooked from that day forward.
Well, it looks like they definitely have a lot in common. I could see
Yeah.
your interest.
Supply chains are supposed to be orderly, right? But, well, that's the goal, is to make it orderly and no disruptions. But yeah, we've noticed over the past 2.5 years, it's been a bumpy ride. Well, it was a bumpy ride before the pandemic hit, but it just got even bumpier. But yeah, as we're coming off of the pandemic, yeah, we're trying to get everything back in order, so to speak.
Can you tell us about your experience in helping businesses achieve supply chain success through technology?
Well, okay, so so I've helped a number of. So let me back up here. So my customers tend to most of them tend to be supply chain providers and carriers. I've had a few shippers. I'll get to them in just a second. But what I've done with to help out carriers and providers is to help with that research need, that analysis, get them to understand what the market looks like today and what it will likely look like 5 years from now. And, they use this type of information for their strategy. How do they want to position themselves moving forward? What do they want to focus on or perhaps not focus on? And what technologies can help them get there? I've done a lot of technology evaluation for freight forwarders as well, again, to help with that whole providing that end-to-end solution, that seems to be a major trend today, from being able to track or follow an item from the manufacturer all the way to that last mile, whether that last mile is a warehouse, a store, a manufacturer, or to a consumer's front door. So I've done a number of that, projects such as that, but I've also helped startups, logistics startups in this space, helping them with just basically their thought leadership strategies, the content writing, positioning, how do they differentiate from other competitors, and also identifying those competitors, and helping them write their story in order for them to get funding from venture capitalists or private equity firms.
Okay.
And then for shippers themselves, I've helped a few. One in particular I thought was fascinating was a Chinese company that had expanded into the U.S. and they were a tire manufacturer and distributor, and they had one warehouse and they had outgrown that warehouse, so they needed help laying out. Really, it's a network optimization plan is what I did with them. It's laying out where their next distribution center should be within the U.S., what technologies they may need to connect the dots, meaning the distribution net facilities, and so on.
That's pretty interesting, definitely, and quite a challenge.
Yeah, that one in particular was a challenge. Yeah. So it's basically, that I like to say I'm more of a generalist and not a specialist. So I had to read up a lot on the distribution centers, the market for that, of warehousing. I also had to get a better understanding of the tire industry, which is interesting, by the way.
I bet. Speaking about trends, how do you stay updated with the latest trends and advancements in logistics technology?
Oh, wow.
I bet you love reading.
I do. How about that? Go figure. So yeah, all my reading tends to be more supply chain oriented. In fact, right now I'm reading a book. It's not necessarily supply chain focused, but it's a history of J.P. Morgan. So right now I'm very much interested in financing of goods and such, and also international trade. And J.P. Morgan has always been very big in that whole international trade space, particularly, giving loans to countries in order for them to trade, build up goods and services and such. But, so I read things like that. But I also, I'm involved in social media. I'm active on Twitter. I'm active on LinkedIn. And I like reading comments from folks and what they share, and just getting their thoughts. I also get on the phone, talk to people, whether they're providers, carriers, technology providers, or shippers. Got a question, I just reach out either by phone or by email. I read general business publications. I think some of my favorites are the Wall Street Journal, of course. Um, I also read The Economist just because I have a background in economics, so I like that. It all clicks with me um, together. But I also read trade magazines. A lot of them are online. The Lodestar, those are great folks. I enjoy their stuff. Logistics management. I also work with a couple of trade magazines. Air Cargo Next, which I
Yeah.
write a column, and the Journal of Commerce, which I help out with research to help them with their articles and such. So try to make it a well-rounded type of reading, talking, monitoring.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You definitely have some insights. I can see.
I'm not so sure, but no, I mean to me, and it could be because I'm a former librarian. Well, I hate to say former librarian because I feel like I still am in so many ways.
Yeah.
I get messages, whether on Twitter or on LinkedIn, from folks going, where can I find whatever? Or, and, that's the job of a librarian. So I usually try to find it for them and send it to them because I think we're all in this boat together,
Yes.
And to me, collaboration has always been important, so I help you. And maybe 5 years from now, you may, I may be reaching out to you for something. Who knows?
Definitely. Definitely. So I have another question for you, Kathy. What do you think is, or what do you think is coming for the logistics industry, especially tech and logistics with this recession? That's everyone says it's here now. Everyone says we're in the starting phase of it.
Okay, Rosie, we talked about this. So, first of all, my thoughts on a recession. We're not in a recession from an economic perspective. A lot of folks have said that we're in a freight recession. I don't know. Perhaps we are. But it depends on how that's defined. But from an economic perspective, we're not there yet. I worry. I really do worry that we're talking ourselves into one. And I mean, and that's happened in the past. We have actually done that. But no, you're right though. Folks are cautious. The shippers are being much more cautious in how they order inventory now. We as consumers aren't clamoring to buy as many goods as we did during the pandemic. So they're tightening those reins. They see that. And then we have folks such as UPS and FedEx that have really greatly expanded their capacity to take on more volume. Well, now that volume is not there for either one. And so they're cutting back on that capacity, and they see moving forward that they're not going to need as much capacity. So we see that as well from the carrier perspective. But from the technology side, I think it's rather interesting because you're still seeing investments being made. You're seeing the UPSs, the FedExes investing in technology to improve efficiencies, whether they're in the warehouse, whether it's route optimization, and whether it's literally improving visibility throughout their entire networks. I think I read Levi's, the jeans manufacturer, back in April. They've been rolling out an ERP system, and they're able to they're monitoring their inventories, forecasting all through this ERP system. So I think a lot of players are still making those investments in the technology. They see, really, that's the way of the future. I hate to say it's the way of the future, but it is. We have just a finite number of workers, so to hire from. and there's more open spaces, available positions than there are workers across the supply chain. So how do you solve for that? You automate
Yeah,
and such. You have too much capacity, you bring it in, you improve the automation, the efficiencies and such. So I think technology is playing a bigger and bigger role.
definitely. And having more providers creates more resilient supply chain. So
Yeah, yeah,
especially in tech.
exactly. I agree. I agree.
So I have another question, a little bit more personal. What motivated you to establish Logistics TI, and how has it evolved over the years?
Okay, um, so I spent about 11 years with UPS, and then ventured out and started working with a couple of other consulting firms, one of which I would write research reports, and we would sell them to investment banks, to shippers, to whomever. Um, and they were like on freight forwarding, contract logistics, so on and so forth. Um, After about 5 years of doing that, though, I decided, well, these a lot of these consulting firms are run by men, and I thought, well, there needs to be a woman involved, and
Yes.
for a consulting firm. So I decided, well, I can do what they're doing. I could do it I could do it my way, and also I just thought it was important, to have a woman-led consulting firm. So yeah, back in 2017, I started my company, and I had originally planned for it to be to sell and to do research reports, very similar to what I had done previously. I soon realized, though, a lot of folks didn't want to read 300 pages worth of supply chain um, analysis. So
Yeah.
I've kind of evolved over the years. I tend to follow what interests me at any given moment. So I've picked up content writing because I thought it was really interesting, and I still do. I enjoy working with startups, um, to see that excitement,
Hmm.
and in a lot of cases that emerging technology, how they're able, because a lot of them don't even come from this space. They come from outside of supply chain, but they see a gap, and that's fascinating to me. Working with a couple of publications, as I've enjoyed doing that, and I never thought I'd be writing for publications, because I have written for other publications as well. So it, I like to say my little company just keeps evolving, you know. So I can't tell you where I'm going to be this time next year, what I'm going to be doing this time next year, but I'll still be here. Um, and I still will be involved in social media, chatting with folks, and learning from folks.
Well, I'm really glad to have found a very passionate woman like yourself, not only going for what passionates you, but also, seeing an opportunity and taking it and taking the risks. And like you mentioned, there's not a lot of women out there in this space. So, you're a brave one, definitely opening doors and opportunities for more women that are, to become.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm not sure if it's brave or stupid or what, but I enjoy it. And to me, you gotta really enjoy what you're doing, because
Definitely.
if not, it's just a job, and that's no fun. Life is short, and I mean, I still got a lot to learn. I think every day I learn something new about supply chains, and so that's what keeps me going, is that whole learning.
That's awesome. Um, as an industry expert, what advice would you give to organizations looking to leverage technology to improve logistics and inventory outcomes?
Um, well, do your research, okay, and Let's see. And don't jump at every new type of technology that comes around. So right now, AI is big.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about AI. Well, maybe AI is right for you, but also keep in mind there's different types of AI. So understand those differences. Um, and if it fits your company strategy, you need to think about your company's strategy because technology doesn't run the company. It's you that's using that technology as a tool at the end of the day. We have some quote unquote older technology out there. It's been around for a long time. That's still viable. One example is RFID tagging. RFID tagging has been around for well over 20 years. Okay. And UPS is utilizing it in a very smart way. They're tagging the packages. That's how they're tracking the packages more closer in real time. Um, so it's almost like RFID has just taken a new, um, has just come back around in circles. Because I remember about 10, 15 years ago, everyone was like, okay, that whole RFID tagging is dead. Well, it's not. It's come back around. And seeing shippers, a lot of retailers embracing RFID tagging. Now we've got UPS using it in a big, big way. So yeah, don't forget that older technology as well.
All right. Well, that's it on my behalf. Cathy, thank you for joining us today and sharing your perspective regarding the challenges of logistics and supply chain, as well as your background and your company. Before we wrap up the talk, where can the audience find out more about you and your work?
Well, I do have a little website. It's logisticsti.com. But the best place to find me is out on social media. So you can find me on Twitter at CM Roberson 06. You can find me on LinkedIn, my company webpage, which is Logistics Trends and Insights, LLC. You can also, I do put out a weekly LinkedIn newsletter called Freight Forward. I do this on behalf of the Journal of Commerce. You sign up for it for free. It's just kind of a weekly update of what's going on in supply chain world. It's out on LinkedIn as well. So, yeah,
All right.
numerous ways of finding me. Yeah, I can't hide.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for watching us today. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And once again, thank you, Cathy, for being here with us.
Oh, thank you.